She made the cards for Julie. Are you kidding?
Well, good evening, and thank you everybody for coming out tonight. I realize it's a little bit after 7, but I wanted to give a few extra minutes for people that were perhaps having a late dinner and to come out and enjoy some conversation. Most of you know me. My name is Tim Saxon, and I'm the incumbent sheriff running for another term as your sheriff here in Trinity County. And since I'll just kind of go over real quickly some of my background. I've got over 35 years in law enforcement here in California, serving as a peace officer in now 3 different law enforcement organizations. I started off in California Highway Patrol, where I served for nearly 28 years, serving in many parts of the state, in various field commands, division commands, headquarters. When I was in headquarters, I also served as liaison to the state capitol, where I represented the Highway Patrol in. I represented the commissioner on several different high-level organization panels at that time. I served at 3 different ranks besides officer. That is sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. And at each of those ranks, I served in field commands, division commands, and at headquarters. Obviously, you know that for about 10 years, I served here in Trinity County as the Trinity River Area Commander. During that time, my family and I, we became very entrenched in Trinity County, having raised our family here. My kids went to the education schools here, graduated from Trinity High School, and my wife was in business here. Also, she worked at the district attorney's office, and so we've been here for a long time. After I left here, I went to Reading at the division office, and ultimately promoted to captain. Went to Hollister Gilroy. That was my last command. So when I was with the Highway Patrol, I also served as an instructor at the CHP Academy and our CHP Coastal Division. I taught sexual harassment, discrimination prevention, racial profiling, hate crimes, civil liability. I also taught Peace Officer Bill of Rights, which is called POBR, Administrative Investigation, and First Line Supervisors Assessment Center. And some of my law enforcement related training includes achieving organizational excellence, ethics in law enforcement, police performance auditing, civil liability, POBR updates, tribal and state justice, employee evaluations, strategic planning. I also attended UC Davis Executive Management Seminar and Management course, and supervisory, middle management, and command academies. Some of my experience also includes special enforcement units. I was a training officer. I was a background investigator, served in recruitment, division training coordinator, commercial vehicle enforcement, citizens complaint investigations. I was also the statewide recruitment coordinator for the department. Hello. I taught at the CHP Academy. I was a discrimination complaint investigator, occupational safety. I worked in internal affairs, grants management. I was also the statewide grants manager for the CHP. Liaison to the state capitol, as I mentioned. I served on the Policy Council for Alcohol and Drug Abuse, Criminal Justice and Planning, and the Juvenile Justice Committee. And after I retired from the patrol, I went to work for the Trinity County Marshal's Office, where I served there for almost 5 years before I ran for sheriff. And the folks of Trinity County elected me in November of 2018, and I've been serving as your sheriff since then. Now currently, as your sheriff, I'm a member of the California State Sheriff's Association. I'm an active participant of the CSSA Legislative Committee. I'm on the Wildfire Ad Hoc Committee, and I also serve and a participant of the North State Sheriff's Group. Upon election, I selected Brian Ward as my undersheriff, and he's gracing us with his presence this evening. And Brian, I'd like to welcome you and introduce you to the group for those that don't know you. Brian and I, we walked into the sheriff's office. Of course, he's been serving there for over 20 years. The sheriff, as you know, resigned pretty much when we walked into the office. So the undersheriff also resigned, and we had no transition team. So we picked up the pieces and we ran with it full speed ahead. One of the things that we knew was that there was a need for some new vehicles. There was a need of reorganization. I used some of my resources I had, such as some contacts with the Highway Patrol, and I was able to pick up some previously used vehicles from their fleet management because we needed some search and rescue vehicles and some vehicles for our auxiliary team. So we made some contacts, picked up 4 vehicles at a very good price. If I recall, it was about $900 a piece. And so I convinced the board that we needed to purchase these. They gave us the money, and we got those. And they're still running today. We got them outfitted and got some new decals on them and everything, so we're still using those vehicles today. That saved a lot of money, not only for those organizations, but it allowed us to continue operating those volunteer organizations. There was also a number of run-out patrol vehicles that were sitting on the side of the Veterans Hall. I don't know if any of you remember seeing, but there were about 9 of them sitting over there. So we got on that right away and got rid of those vehicles very quickly because it was an eyesore and it looked really bad next to the sheriff's office and next to a county building to have those vehicles sitting there. So we were able to get rid of that. We also needed a new animal control vehicle because that truck that we were using was very old and it was not in a good state for our humane treatment of animals. So we got on that right away. I asked the CAO for some funding for a new vehicle. We purchased that. It took a while to get there, but I don't know if you've seen it, but that's a wonderful vehicle. It has a new box on the back that actually has an air conditioner to help with the humane treatment of those animals that we pick up, especially in the hot summers that we have here. We also had a need for a long distance prisoner transportation vehicle because not too much earlier, we actually had a vehicle that was transporting inmates down to, I believe, Tracy, that caught on fire. Put not only inmates but our correctional deputies in a very unsafe situation. So I asked for some funding for that. We were able to purchase a plain marked vehicle, and we outfitted that. And that we're currently using that as a very safe vehicle to transport inmates to state prison. We had a new jail that was coming online that we started looking at the plans. We started finalizing, getting architects lined up, construction people lined up for that. And we actually broke ground in 2019 in the summer for that. At the same time, we had a new records management system coming online, as well as a computer-aided dispatch center and software for that. So we began training on that. And as we're moving forward on that, we also needed patrol vehicles. Well, we didn't have any money to buy cars. So Brian and I started thinking about, well, what can we do? Well, there was a new presentation that we had gotten from Enterprise Rent-A-Car about leasing vehicles, leasing patrol cars. There were a few agencies in the state that started thinking about it, and we looked at how much would we be able to save if we went to this, and we determined that it was beneficial for us to at least try it. So we made the pitch to the county, and they thought, okay, go ahead and try it, because no other departments within the county had done this before. They gave us a shot at it. We leased 4 patrol vehicles, and so far it's working out really well for us. So much so that we're thinking about doing it for 3 more patrol vehicles this time, because again, our budget's tight, the county budget is tight. So we're gonna try that and see how it works out. And the nice thing about it is at a point in time, we'll evaluate it, and we can turn these vehicles back to Enterprise if the cost value is such that we can actually get some money back on it to put down onto the next lease cycle. So that's what we're evaluating on that at a regular basis. Another thing we noticed was that in the back parking lot of the sheriff's office, there were tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment for search and rescue, such as quads and snowmobiles and whatnot, that were sitting outside in the elements that were being damaged just from the elements. And we determined that this was not a good thing. This was basically a waste of money. So we were able to find a structure here in town that we could rent that was just being completed. And we identified a funding source for that, primarily from grant funding, that we were able to get all of these vehicles into a protected structure, and it had enough room in it where we could also move all of our grant-funded boats in there for our state boating program. So we have been able to do that and move those into a protected structure. And unfortunately, we were not able to save the existing OES communications trailer that had been previously purchased and was sitting outside. That had extreme water damage and mold damage to it, and so we were unable to save that. But we were able to identify additional grant funding where we could purchase a new trailer, and that was just recently delivered. And so we're getting ready to start installing new radio equipment into that trailer. So we will once again have communications for emergency operations, such as fires, floods, whatnot. Floods if we ever get any rain, but fires anyway, that we've been having severe situations with that over the last couple of years. So these are some of the things that we have been able to do. When I took over office in the past, we had several missing persons cases. And I instituted a new policy of preservation of electronic evidence. And what that means is every time we have a missing persons case, we immediately get search warrants issued to collect and retain every bit of social media, cell phones, anything electronics that can help track the missing person. That evidence then is stored, evaluated for future reference if we need it. That has been instrumental in helping us with every missing person case that we've had during my administration. For example, in 2019, we had 38 missing persons. 38 cases were solved. 2020, 27 cases. 27 were solved. 2021, 40 cases. 40 were solved. And so far in 2022, 8 cases and 8 have been solved. I know this doesn't help in the past. We still have 9 cases going back to 2015 that we're still working on. But I want to tell you that we are working on those cases. As a piece of evidence comes up, we're still looking at those cases. And we will not let those cases fall. So I just want to let you know. Another thing we did was the rebirth of our volunteer programs. For example, search and rescue. When we took over, there were 8 members. Right now, we have over 50 members in our search and rescue. 50. These are volunteers, and I got to tell you, that man over there, Brian Ward, he's been instrumental in this program. They have many training programs going on. They've had training in identifying burn victims. They've had swiftwater training, wildland EMT training, bringing up the National Guard to train on that. We now have 3 certified rescue divers. We've never had certified rescue divers before. We do now. We have search and rescue explorers. These are high school kids. 15 of them in our high schools. All 3 high schools participate in that now. We have an animal rescue group, 15 members of that have been instrumental in helping during emergency incidents, especially the wildfires over the last 2 years. We have a chaplain program. 5 members belong to that help out during emergency incidents. And of course, the Sheriff's Auxiliary. I don't want to leave them out. They help out on so many different occasions with with emergencies, with fires, with just special events that the sheriff's office holds, and special events such as the fair and things like that. They're always there, volunteering their time and helping out wherever needed. Another thing that I did is I rebuilt all those relationships that seem to have been strained over past years between the Board of Supervisors and the Sheriff's Office, allied agencies, especially some sheriff's offices in the surrounding counties, Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife. They've all been very, very helpful in helping us with task force operations to assist in eradicating illegal cannabis grows that have been damaging the environment here in our county. And we reciprocate whenever we can in helping out those counties with their issues as well. We become very, very active with the Trinity Safe School Collaborative. That's a group through the Office of Education where we're participating with behavioral health, the hospital, probation, highway patrol. We all get together to identify and work on issues to help our students with any type of behavioral health issues, drugs, alcohol, any type of things like that through our schools. Let's talk a little bit about emergency response to fires. Past 2 years especially with the August Complex fires, the McFarland fire, the Monument fire, the River Complex fire, your sheriff's office has been taxed to the brink, especially this last year. We've never had 3 major fires at one time where we had so many communities impacted, so many communities evacuated at the same time, so many people displaced, and not just people, but animals at the same time. Can't say enough about our animal control officer, all our animal control volunteers, and you, the public, who stepped up and helped us tremendously. I just want you to know that we appreciate everything that you did to help us on that. During evacuations, obviously people don't like to be told you need to leave your house. But I think that when I did give the evacuation orders, there were fewer people that complained this time than I've ever seen before, and I've lived here for 24 years. People are beginning to understand that we do not give these orders lightly, and I think that's a good thing. I think people really are finding that they need to go when the order comes out, especially the issues that we had in Junction City this year, where that firestorm turned around and came through there so quickly. And I'm very, very thankful that we did not have any loss of life this time. But Brian and I, we worked something like 41 days straight this year, attending cooperator meetings, evacuation meetings, repopulation meetings, community meetings. I think some of you may have seen me on Zoom meetings and whatnot. Those are very, very good community meetings to have. So what came out of that was evacuation zone planning. And so that's what we've been working on. Every community now will be part of the zones. We're going to publish those zones. We're incorporating those into the Code Red system so that when we do have to do an evacuation, the Code Red will already have that programmed into it. So when you get the message, you will know, hey, I'm in zone 643. And it'll be A, B, C, whatever. We can break it down that way. So there'll be no question whether or not you should be evacuated or whether you're in a warning. And we're thinking about also getting that put into a Facebook message, and we're looking at other things on that as well. Recruitment and retention, we're constantly going through that, trying to hire, and it's getting harder and harder to do that out. We currently have several people in the academy right now. It's just law enforcement right now is not the career choice for a lot of people, not like it was a few years ago. So we have a lot of challenges on that. We have to overcome pay, benefits, housing, but we're thinking about that. We have a lot of plans with that. We're working with the county on that as well to try and come up with some ideas. that's kind of like what we've been doing. Let's talk about where we're going. I want to continue to eradicate illegal marijuana cultivation, especially those sites that divert water illegally, those that pollute the environment, and those that kill the wildlife, using a task force approach with all available local, state, and federal resources. Some of you read recently where we were able to secure $300,000 in state funding with it was part of a $1.5 million grant from, well, it's not a grant, $1.5 million in funding from Senator McGuire with Humboldt and Mendocino counties. And we'll be starting to utilize that funding shortly in a task force approach to go after the worst of the worst illegal cultivation going on in primarily the southern part of Trinity County. We're working on emergency evacuation planning, like I was just talking about, finalizing and publicizing the evacuation zones. So that's a big project that we're working on. And as far as also exploring new technologies so that we can reach into those areas that don't have internet, that don't have cell phone coverage. There are new technologies that are coming online every couple of months. So we're taking a look at those. And a big part of that is my work through the State Sheriff's Association, where these types of presentations are being made at the quarterly board meetings that I go to. It's exciting to find that, because there's also grant opportunities available on that front. I'm continuing to work with OES on community evacuation routes, and I want to start a collaboration with multi-agency approaches to developing policies and ordinances for these nuisance fire danger properties that we keep having, especially up in the northern part of the county and in the central part of the county. There are a lot of properties that continue to build up excess vegetation that owners are either unwilling or unable to get rid of. So I have some ideas on that, and I want to use all the resources that we have in a multi-agency approach to that. I want to work on a new emergency response communication trailer, as I mentioned. We have that. We're working forward on it. We just need to look for a couple more funding sources to complete the outfitting of that. I'm working on a multi-county task force operation to investigate human trafficking and labor trafficking associated with transnational drug organizations. That is very close to coming to fruition on that, and very shortly you'll see some information coming out through the board on it. We have a new cannabis planning director, and I just met with him, and we're going to begin working very closely to establish a workable ordinance that fits with state laws to move forward with better compliance with the cannabis industry. We have 2 grants that I failed to mention that we got during my first administration. One was the JAG grant, which dealt with a multi-agency task force operation to go after major crimes. COVID, unfortunately, put a real big damper on that multi-agency task force operation, because it was originally set up to have participation with the Highway Patrol, Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife, and us, and everybody pretty much pulled out of it because of COVID. But regardless, even with our detectives' involvement, we had some outstanding results with it. But we didn't have the full benefit of what we wanted to do with it. So we still have the grant, we're still trying to work it. It's not doing exactly what we wanted to do. We were able to also get a Prop 64 grant. That was the cannabis tax money through the state. Part of that money paid for a juvenile crimes detective. Some areas call them a school resource officer. We did not call it that in our grant. because we wanted to have a little bit more flexibility with that position. Because of COVID, that stopped a lot of the training that we were hoping to get for that particular person, plus the fact that the original deputy that we assigned to it ended up resigning because of the fact that he determined that law enforcement was not the career that he wanted to pursue. The next deputy that we put in there, then again, we did not have training opportunities available. So we're just now getting everything back on board now, and so we're anticipating moving forward on that. And this was another close working situation with the Trinity School Collaborative. That was a big issue with them working together on that. So we're going to expand that program, and another part of that particular grant also dealt with dealing with environmental health and bringing them on board, working with our code enforcement unit, and bringing in satellite imagery so that we can spot water diversions and illegal cannabis operations that are polluting the environment. So we're still working on that to get that part of the grant operational. Recruitment and retention, as I mentioned before, has been a big issue right now. I think over the last 3.5 years, we've hired and lost in the neighborhood of about 40 people just in the sheriff's office. Combination of retirements with people who have determined that law enforcement is not the career for them, of internal affairs, a combination of reorganization. For example, 4 individuals were lost from our structure, but yet rehired through the kitchen because we went to a contract food service group. Instead of hiring our own people to prepare food for the inmates, we went to an outside service group to prepare the food for the inmates. And the reason for that was I determined that we could save about $160,000 a year by going to that particular operation. So when I say that we've had a turnover, it's not just people leaving. Some people have actually gone to other agencies because of monetary reasons. We've had people come to us saying that, I love working for the Trinity County Sheriff's Office, I can't afford to stay here. We've had 2 people go to the Chico area for that reason. We've had people go to Shasta County. I have a couple of people in backgrounds right now. One's going to Shasta because of the fact that there's more money there. We have agencies right now taking people that are laterals over because they get a signing bonus. It's just a fact of life right now. We can't compete with that. I have 3 people in the academy right now in Siskiyou. They're graduating in June. I hope that they will continue to come here. That's all I can hope for. We actually had hired one to go to the academy. We were going to pay for the individual to go there, and they called us and said, "Hey, I'm really sorry, but Shasta offered me $7 an hour more in the academy," and so they went there. It's just it's something we have to deal with. So we are considering a plan to restructure classifications within our agency that will offer more opportunities for advancement in our organization and additional positions for people who may not want to work with inmates directly, and give them an opportunity to come work for our agency but not have direct contact. So we're trying to think outside the box to create opportunities for people to come work for us in different pay structures to keep them here. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk to you about as far as where we've been, what we've done, and where I want to go. So with that, I'm going to open it up to you guys because I've talked about as long as it seems. So
what about the jail? Is it opening next week or?
That's a very good question. So let me tell you about this flu virus called COVID. When we when we started working on the jail, we did the groundbreaking, and not too long after that, we ran into supply chain issues. The latest thing that we had going on is the fact that our telecommunications lines were delayed due to contractual issues. Those issues have been resolved. Our next gen 911 system, which is brand new that we got through the state, that is due to be installed in the near future now that we have the contract issues settled. So that, plus the fact that we had those really weird storms last year with the hail. I don't know if you guys remember that hailstorm that we had. That damaged 9 of our HVAC systems up on top of the roof, and we're just now getting the replacement parts for that, because apparently they came from another country and the boats were off of Long Beach for a while, and yeah, the ball took a bad hop, the sun got in their eyes, I don't know, something like that. But anyway, most of those parts are in now. I'm being told that we're looking at the end of May to open up the jail. Maybe June.
July.
I'm getting a slight nod. So we're hoping that we'll have that open May, June.
Thank you.
So we're looking forward to having a ribbon cutting in May and public tours at that time. But we're moving
Will there be
forward.
prisoners in that jail, or they're going to be justice-involved personnel?
Okay, John. Here's the thing. Okay, justice-involved persons. That is a term that the state of California is moving towards. They're inmates. Justice-involved persons is a term that is being used by Board of State and Community Corrections and by several politicians and by several organizations in the state, including State Sheriff's
I
Association.
understand.
You have to understand that I, as a sheriff, and I deal with many political people in the state. Just last week, I was talking with 4 congressmen in Washington, as well as the head of the Forest Service, Chief Moore. I have to be able to switch back and forth between the vernacular that I use, whether I'm in Trinity County, whether I'm in Sacramento, or whether I'm talking to people in Washington, D.C. So I switch back and forth quite frequently. That's just what I do. And I think you want your sheriff to be able to do that.
Yes, we do.
Because you don't want somebody, in my opinion anyway, this is my opinion, you don't want somebody talking to a congressman in Washington and not being able to converse with that individual at their level.
Mhm.
So they're the same
I
thing.
agree.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I was stirring the pot, was all I was doing.
Okay. Did I simmer that down?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 3 questions,
Okay, let's do one at a time.
just one at a time. So during the fires, I really noticed that your communication downriver was really lacking. Are you still working on trying to build the towers so your officers can talk? Because there's so many quote dead zones for, you know, you get around the corner and all of a sudden you're like cutting out. I mean, I've heard that with different officers. Is that being improved throughout the county? All the towers for communications?
Okay, replacing repeaters is very, very expensive.
Yeah.
In about 6 to 8 years, I can tell you that we're going to have to replace all the towers in the county.
Right.
And that is a multi-million-dollar project.
Grant, hopefully.
Grant funding is going to be a big part of it.
Yes.
Ironside Tower downriver is a huge problem simply because of where it's at.
Right.
We have to constantly switch between that, or we have to go to Hayfork or Pickett or something like that. There is no easy fix for that right now. We're trying the best we can.
Well, I'm just worried about the safety of the officers.
I hear you. I'm worried about that day in and day out as well.
Yeah, yeah. And then
So
my second one is Brian following you with this election. Because that hasn't been mentioned out loud that I know of.
Brian has told me that he will probably do that.
Okay. It's, you know,
And after that, we have 2 more people that are lined up.
Okay. And then my,
So I have a succession plan
okay,
already.
good.
Yeah.
Then my last question is, are you and Jamie Bailey going to have a debate nights in and around the county like you did with, was it Mr. Hanover, where you talk back and forth?
There are debates being lined up by different community groups. Here in this room, there's one set for May 9th. The Seroptimus International in Trinity County is sponsoring one on May 9th here.
For the two of you?
I know, I just want
There'll
to,
be-
I just want to find out if it's.
Yeah, I know the sheriff candidates will be here. I don't know whether the board of supervisor candidates will be here.
Okay,
Yes, they will. The board of supervisor candidates will be here.
And you said May
9th.
8th? 9th, thank you.
I believe there will also be one in Junction City on the 10th. And I believe in Hayfork on the 3rd. We're looking that up right now.
Then you're going to High and Palm too, aren't you?
sure.
High and Palm will be next week on April 6th.
So they'll be published in the paper and or on Facebook for the community to know.
That I don't know.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.
I know the one here will be
Okay,
advertised. I'm pretty sure the one in Junction City will be advertised, and I can bet you the one in Hayfork will be advertised. The one in High and Palm is not a big event, so I don't know. It is, High and Palm is May 6th. April, no, High and Palm is April 6th.
that's next week, okay.
Hayfork is May,
Oh, that was the Tuesday. Hayfork is May 3rd.
May 3rd. Okay, those will be published, I can
And
pretty
each
much
of
guarantee
those
that.
are you and Jamie?
I can tell you that, yeah, in each of those, all the candidates, I can tell you both candidates will be invited. I can't tell you if both candidates will show up. I can tell you I will be
You will
there,
show-
yeah.
That's smart.
Yeah,
Thank you,
that's a
Tim.
good plan.
Yes,
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for all you do for the county.
Yes.
you're very
Hanging
welcome.
in there with us.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
That is,
Thank you. Thank you.
and I'm really happy to hear that there's plans for doing more wildfire prevention. I am concerned about the fact that we've had 2 fires around town. And it concerns me that we still have a lot of people camping, people who are impaired, that may be putting the community at risk and other communities as well. And I'm wondering if there's gonna be more, multi-agency, what do you wanna call it, anyway, I'm not sure the right word, but anyway, an effort to get out there and make sure they're not building, making garbage dumps and building fires illegally, and what more could be done, because we're gonna have such a dry year. And it concerns me, 2 fires in 3-4 days, and we were lucky that they got put out when they did.
Absolutely. Everybody hear that about the camping, and she's concerned about the camping around the communities and the fires that have been set recently, and the trash that's been building up about that. I can tell you that the number one about arson issues. We have one of our deputies, one of our investigators, has been working on a arson task force and is getting trained in additional arson investigation techniques. So they're working closely on that aspect of it. They're working cases. Those cases are being turned over to the district attorney's office for prosecution. As far as camping goes, there's some ordinances dealing with the camping. Some of that also deals with other agencies, and we coordinate with those on a regular basis, those agencies, to make sure that we stay on top of those individuals. As far as moving them from particular areas, we now have I forget her official title, but she's like a homeless advocate, a homeless coordinator, and the county has temporary housing available for these individuals. So we contact them, or she contacts them. So if you find an individual that's in that situation, you can contact us or the county, and we can try and get out there and give them some assistance to find a temporary housing situation for them, to get them off the street and to get them resources for assistance, whether it be get them maybe down to Reading, where they have more resources available to them, more services available to them. We even have the opportunity to contact family members for them, to contact them and see whether or not they would like to help them and get them back to a home. Or we can get other services, like if they need behavioral health services, or if they need any type of drug treatments and things like that. So we have these services that are coming online.
Terrific.
So it's not like it used to be. We have a multi-agency approach to this now, and so it's very exciting to have that coming along.
And it makes us feel better, community members.
Absolutely, absolutely. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with the missing persons results. Over the several decades, I've noticed also that the homicide rates have gone up. And besides the effort you have to put in, it's also a drain on the district attorney's office. These are high-cost cases. What can you say about homicides in the county?
The homicide rates are fluctuating. I mean, they go up, they go down. I can tell you that over the last 4 years, they really haven't gone up that much. I mean, by 1 or 2. And when you speak about homicides, you look at the numbers of justifiable homicides, and that's a legal term, whether or not it was justified for somebody to take somebody else's life. I know of two or three. Was it? I have to rely on Brian here for a second. I think it's two. Two in the last 2 years have been ruled justifiable. So there was no DA case, there was no trial, there was nothing. So that did not result in any costs to the district attorney's office. Obviously, there was a cost to the sheriff's office to investigate, collect evidence, and put the case together. So when you're looking at costs, for us, whether it's justified or not justified, it's still going to cost us the same amount of money as far as collecting the evidence and preparing the cases. The numbers involved, it just is what it is. There's really no way to try and figure out how to prevent that. We do what we can. We go out there, we patrol, and that really comes down to the number of deputies that we can have. Obviously, in my opinion and in your opinion, the more deputies that we can have on the street, the better protected you feel, and the less likely somebody may be to consider committing a crime. We've tried the best. We've had almost fully staffed down to barely being able to make minimums as far as deployments go. It's the luck of the draw. Do we have people who want to stay here, have the desire to stay here, or are they using us as a training ground? That's nothing new. We just recently did a survey of all the North State. With the exception of one sheriff's office, everybody is down. Every single office is down. And we have weekly meetings with the North State Sheriff's Group, and we all talk about, what are you doing to recruit? What are you doing to recruit? Even Shasta County, who's pretty much, I think, the highest paid right now as far as the sheriff's office goes, they're down people. And it's just the same all over. no matter what you're paying, people don't seem to want to get into law enforcement right now. We don't have the answer. And those, unfortunately, those that do want to get into law enforcement, I personally don't want some of them to be here to protect you. And I mean, I could hire 10 people out of the academy tomorrow, but unfortunately, they're not the kind of people that I want to protect you, and that's just the way it is. So.
Right here.
Hi.
So it seems like there's a lot of vandalism during the night. And I'm just wondering, I don't know if you've got guys on duty for that, guys and gals, or does everybody just kind of come at 8 in the morning, or what can be done about that? It seems like lots of windows being broken, lots of damage at the park, just maybe not high on the list of priorities, but troublesome.
We have 24-hour patrol.
Good.
So if there's a troubled area, if these are being reported, then that's something that the night shift needs to be aware of, and our supervisors need to be aware of, so that we can deploy to those areas. And I don't know if those reports are getting made. So that's something that we obviously need to take a look at. The vandalisms, if we can get those reported, we can find out those areas that it's occurring in, then we can pay more attention to those areas.
Are there random patrols during the night?
They're supposed to be.
Good.
So we'll take a look at that.
GPS?
So we'll take a look at that.
Okay,
But
thank you.
you bet. But you know, the other thing is when we do find individuals that are causing these vandalisms, the unfortunate thing that we have going on right now is when we do make an arrest, they're misdemeanors, we book them, and they're released. We process the paperwork, we do the report, they go to court, and there's really nothing that can be done in today's judicial system.
Maybe you could just keep the cuffs on them when they were released.
That would be a nice thing, so
Yeah.
that we all know.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
okay, thank you.
and it's a product of the system that we have today. So I wish we could do more.
Any thoughts of, in your department or maybe even statewide, of using volunteers in any way?
The Trinity Sheriff Auxiliary is a volunteer organization. You are free to join them.
At my age?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We would love to have you on search and rescue, because they're not all going up into the mountains. We need logistical support as well. People that can stay back and read a map, or help with the radios, or help bring food in.
How many members are there in this organization?
The auxiliary has about 10 right now, and search and rescue has about 50.
Hey, okay. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. And thank you for asking that question, because we can always use volunteers.
I'm glad you asked.
I was just gonna comment with your involvement with the high school kids in these organizations that you've developed since you've been sheriff, that I think that's gonna go a long way with recruitment. Yes, they're young, but they're developing a love for law enforcement. And if they love this county, they'll probably want to stay here and ultimately become deputies. So I think it's a great thing where you're going into the high schools and they're really working with the kids, and they can get a taste of what law enforcement is all about.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because last summer we grabbed an individual that just graduated high school, and he's working in our jail right now.
That's terrific, yeah.
And then we recently hired another graduate that's working in our administration office right now as a financial person. In fact, I think we have somebody else that's in the high school right now that we're beginning to work a background package on him. He graduates in June, and we'll start him in the jail working there. And these are individuals, you're absolutely right. These will be homegrown people that live in the community and want to stay here, and we'll develop them. And if they have a desire, we'll send them to the academy when they get old enough, and hopefully keep them here for their entire career.
And
So
those will be your best recruits.
they are.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you we have several right now that are deputies and detectives that have been here, raised here. They want to stay here. So
They have a commitment to this county for sure.
exactly. You know, and you mentioned the schools. One thing that I was just talking with the collaborative group and the Fabio that's running for school superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
We were just talking about a new project in the schools where perhaps we can start up an elective course in the high school on public safety, involving a deputy, maybe probation, and somebody from the fire department, where they could teach a class on public safety and talk about the benefits and what do public safety officers do, and maybe gain some interest from the students to go into public safety, maybe not as a career, but maybe as a volunteer, like a volunteer firefighter, or so on and so forth. So they're very excited about hearing more about what we can do on that program, and I was excited too, because we can get more volunteers and more potential applicants.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick comment. I know primarily you're an administrator, but as the general public, I really appreciate seeing you in uniform. Every once in a while, some of the big events, the traffic, the fires, different things. I know you don't have to do that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
love seeing you in the
appreciate that. I my entire career I wore a uniform. I still wear a uniform, and I think it's part of accountability as well. I think the public appreciates seeing somebody in uniform. I enjoy running out of the office and backing up the deputies. Those that notice from the fires, I show up at the community meetings in uniform because that's recognition. They know that, hey, there's the sheriff. He's out here. I assisted with evacuations. It's just that's me. That's who I am, and that's what you're paying me to do. I'm not just the guy sitting behind the desk. When the call comes out, I'm trained. I carry a gun. I'm trained to drive the car fast. I just don't know where the red light is. So, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And so
Could you take back to your office how much we appreciate all of your deputies and your staff and everybody, what they did for the fires? Everybody. It takes the whole community.
Mm-hmm.
But from my heart, everybody, I appreciate everything they did.
absolutely, I will tell
It's
them that.
amazing.
I have several questions, a couple of short. Is there any requirement for deputies to be residents of the county? Do they have to live here when they're hired?
No, they do not have to live here. But the deputies that are in this county are allowed to take their cars home so they can respond from home. There's currently a policy you can't take a car out of the county because it's a county vehicle.
Another question. Today I saw a vehicle that I hadn't seen before. It was nicely painted. It said probation and then school something. Is that one of ours?
That's a probation vehicle, and that is the school officer from probation.
Carol.
Yeah,
So
Carolyn
Was
Atterbury.
that a newly acquired vehicle?
No, that's been 2 years now,
I guess
two
I just saw it
or
for
3
the
years.
first time.
Yeah, and she's assigned to go to the different schools and work the probation side of the schools.
And I have a final question. Could you comment on your relationship as a department with the district attorney's office and how cases go from your department, the sheriff, into the court system? What's the relationship there?
Okay, did you ever watch Law and Order? Okay, boom, boom. What the sheriff's office does is, we would make the arrest, then we investigate the crime, we prepare all the paperwork, we do the reports, and then we ship all that over to the district attorney's office. The DA or the assistant DA would go through the case, see whether or not there is enough information, there is enough evidence to support prosecution. If there's any questions they have, then they would come back to us. They would ask any clarifying questions or request any additional follow-up. We would provide that. And then it's up to the district attorney's office to decide whether to prosecute that case, whether to plead the case out, or whether to deny filing the charges.
Do you feel you have a good relationship and feel like you're all working together, or some departments maybe don't get along and don't support each other on your work, or do you feel supported?
I feel that, you know, the district attorney's office does the best job that they can with the staffing that they have, just like my office does the best we can with the staffing that we have. Oh, it's not a question? That was a wave, okay. Any other questions? No other questions. Okay, well, if that's going to be it, then I'll just close with this, and I just want to say that there's a feeling out there, you know, that somebody's been maybe misquoting some things, and one thing I want to talk about is, you know, there's a difference between a goal and a promise. I don't make promises that I can't keep. I make goals. And when I ran for election 4 years ago, I ran for this office, I made goals. And some of you may still have that little card that I sent out, and right on there it says goals. It doesn't say promises, it says goals. And I worked really hard to try and attain those goals. And did I make all of them? No, I didn't. But I worked really hard to make those goals. And those that I didn't make, I'm going to continue working on those goals the next 4 years. So I just want to point that out, that there is a difference between promises and goals. And so I am going to make you a promise right here. And that is that the promise that I will always do my best to do the right thing. And I'll always work as hard as I can to attain my goals. And if I can't, I will tell you why I can't do it. And if I make a mistake, I'll be honest with you and I'll tell you, I'll make a mistake. And I'm going to own that mistake. And if my deputies make a mistake, I'm going to own that too, because they're my deputies. So I work for you. You're like my family. So I'm hoping that you're going to give me the opportunity to work 4 more years by giving me your vote on June 7th. So thanks for being here. Take care. Go eat some cookies.
Where's the pie? Dave, where's the pie?